Hi everyone, today we're going to talk about the difference between meat broth and bone broth, and I'm going to show you my favorite way to make meat broth. My name is Anita and welcome to my channel where I show you how I've lost over 145 pounds following an animal-based ketogenic diet. Okay, today I'm going to make some meat broth, not bone broth, and I think that meat broth has been kind of lost in all the conversations surrounding broth in the carnivore and keto space. You can find so many videos on making bone broth. Everybody's got one. Everyone has a favorite way to do it. But you know, I learned a long time ago there's a step backwards for some of us. Those of us that have leaky gut issues or SIBO or IBS, those types of problems where we're having gut issues doing carnivore, perhaps on keto or any diet that you're on, could benefit from making meat broth first, getting your gut aligned, sealing it, and then moving on to bone broth. So I'm going to make meat broth today, and I actually use meat broth a lot, almost as much as I use bone broth. I use them both, and so we'll go through some of the different reasons and some of the procedures and whatnot. My favorite way to make meat broth is with oxtails, so that's what I'm going to do today. And also today, I'm going to throw some beef cheeks in there. I actually learned this combination from my friend Melissa, who has an amazing healing story, by the way. She too has avoided having joint replacement surgery and other amazing things. I'm going to link her interview below with Simon from How to Carnivore. He works with Dr. Chafee. Melissa works with Dr. Chafee, and Melissa is also a moderator on my weekly Sunday night live streams. And I didn't even know her whole story until I saw that interview. So I know she's gonna kill me for this, but I'm doing it anyways. It's down there. You got to watch it. So thank you, Melissa, for telling me about this combination of meat. So why is this so great? This combination of meat, you've got oxtails. They are so full of collagen. Your meat broth is going to be like Jell-O, just like when I make bone broth using oxtail bones. The same thing with the beef cheeks. The beef cheeks are something that if you just cook them in the oven or fry them or any other way, you're going to have some tough meat because there's so much connective tissue in them. But that connective tissue is what makes this meat broth so powerful and healing. And so I'm going to do both because I'm trying to clean out my freezer. The other bonus that you get from doing your meat broth this way is not only am I going to get a huge pot of broth, but I'm going to get leftover meats that have been pressure cooked, and I can use them in other recipes. For example, one of my favorite ways to use the oxtails after I've made the meat broth is I air fry them. They are so crispy and delicious. And my favorite way to use the beef cheeks is I cut it up into cubes for soup or stew. And again, we're talking tender, collagen-rich meat that really adds a nice dimension to your soups and stews. So you're making meat broth, but you're getting multiple meals as well out of this. So it's a win-win-win situation. So let's get started. I'm going to unwrap these things. There's no searing necessary. We're just talking water, these items, and salt. That's all I'm using. So just give me a moment to get these unwrapped. I've got my Instant Pot here ready to go. There's nothing in it yet, but I just wanted to point out I'm using this little lifter. If you don't have a lifter, it's not necessary. You can use tongs, fork to get the meat out afterwards. I do find the lifter handy, and I have it, so I'm using it. But I did want to show you what beef cheeks looks like, because they're not commonly found. Let's get a close-up of this. So I'm going to give you a good look at this. Look how fibrous that is. Dr. Chafee says that for those that worry about fiber, this is the kind of meat we get our fiber from. This is fiber for carnivores. Okay, so it's like a big steak, but you can't cook it like a steak. I'm just gonna lay it in here. I've got two chunks. So I've got my oxtails here. I normally like to get oxtails with more fat on them, like around the edges, but oxtails, I've had difficulty finding them lately, and I don't know why. There's a shortage. But I found these, they'll have to do. They are amazing as far as the amount of collagen you get. So in here I've got my meat. There's about 1.5 pounds each of the oxtails and the beef cheeks. I'm going to put a tablespoon of salt in. That should be plenty of salt. And I'm filling this right up with water. For those of you who think it's a lot of salt, there's going to be a lot of water. And I don't usually measure it. I just fill it up to the max. But I'm going to measure it today. This is about a quart. I'm sure I'm going to need more. You want the... just fill it up. You want as much liquid as you can fit in your Instant Pot. So I've put in 3 quarts so far. I'm going to just put in a little bit more. There's a little room left. Okay, I'm right up to the max line. So it was 3 quarts and a bit, maybe an extra cup or so. That's it. I'm going to turn this on. It's going to go for 90 minutes. And then we're going to talk about a few things as to why this is so great. Okay, so my Instant Pot does have a soup broth option. Basically, I want 90 minutes on pressure cook. So if yours doesn't have that option or it has a different time, 90 minutes is, for those cheeks, those beef cheeks especially. Otherwise, they could still be too tough. So we're gonna put that on, and I've got 90 minutes here. And we're just going to let it go. One of my favorite things to do with either meat broth or bone broth is to put my unflavored element in it because it adds that extra saltiness. It's good for hydration. I just love it. Element is a super effective electrolyte drink. I've been using it for a couple of years now for my leg cramps and to make sure I stay hydrated. It comes with a science-backed formula of 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium. I am doing Lion Diet. Even though I've loosened up a little bit for the month of December, I'm still trying to stick to basic Lion Diet. I'm trying to eliminate as many extras as I can to get through December. So I highly recommend going with the unflavored raw element, as there are no natural flavors or sweeteners in it whatsoever. So I believe it is very good for Lion Diet. Right now, Element is offering to my viewers this 8-flavor sample pack. This is great for a stocking stuffer. We're at that time of year. Another good gift item on the Element website is the chocolate medley flavors. Maybe some of those people that in your life that are not yet fully carnivore, or they still like to have a little bit of that sweet taste, that would be a good Christmas gift for them. This comes with 8 of their standard flavors, and you can share them or try out the other flavors if you're not doing Lion the way I am. You can get this with any purchase on their website. It'll just be added automatically to your cart when you use my link, which is drinkelement.com/ketogenicwoman. That's DRINKLMNT.com/ketogenicwoman. Thank you, Element, for sponsoring this video today. The other great thing about using the meat stock versus the bone broth is if you have histamine issues. So the meat stock takes 90 minutes to cook. Bone broth generally takes longer. Even in the Instant Pot, 90 minutes is about the minimum time for bone broth, although I have done it for 90 minutes. Many people say you should go 3 hours. And then there are people who make bone broth cooking on the stove for 24 hours or even 48 hours, or slow cooker. So if you have histamine issues, those are not the best thing. If you have gut issues, many people don't know that the meat broth is actually a lot easier on your gut and helps to heal your gut as a first step before using the bone broth. The bone broth is not quite as gentle on your gut and your tummy. So that is one reason to maybe take a look at meat broth versus bone broth, so that if you're having some trouble still, because I do hear now and then from people who say they can't tolerate the bone broth, and I often forget to mention meat broth because I think everybody knows about meat broth, but they don't. I kind of grew up with it with my mom. I mean, she used to make, that was the standard thing to do back when I was a little kid. They would take, meat bones and meat scraps. Chicken was a big one. For those of you who do chicken, you can make a great chicken broth using chicken wings and necks and backs. And that's a very inexpensive way to make a good quality meat broth. I've also made it with just filling this up with beef ribs, and then I use the ribs as a meal as well after. But you've got the bones and the meat in there. 90 minutes is all you need, and you've got super tender ribs that you could then throw in your air fryer. You're still going to get, as long as you're using the types of meats that have a lot of connective tissue. You could use cut up brisket, the beef ribs as mentioned, the oxtails that I'm using here. Anything that has connective tissue, knuckles, those sorts of things, beef tendons even. Anything like that is going to give you a lot of collagen. You're going to have a nice beef jello later. And the bonus is that it's easier to digest. So that is why I wanted to make sure that everybody who's in my audience anyways knows, to try meat broth as well. And I use it throughout the week. This will give me a big pot, and throughout the week I'll use it first thing in the morning for drinking, because I don't drink coffee anymore, and also as a base for any soups and stews that I make. So it is very handy. We're going to come back when this is finished, and I'll then show you how to wrap up your, what to do with the meat and what to do with the broth to get it ready to use. See you in the next segment. Okay, so we're back. That went for about 90 minutes. Well, it went for 90 minutes, and then I got carried away doing other things, and it's been slow releasing the pressure for over 40 minutes. So it's definitely ready to come out. It's not hypercritical to get to it right away, but you should let it rest for at least 20 minutes after it's finished the pressure cooking part. So I'm going to release the steam. I'm surprised there's still steam, but there is. There we are. Right now, the first thing I want to do is drain my beef cheeks. They look super soft now. This was a good thing to do. I'm gonna get those out. I think it's probably, now that they're cooked, it's probably easier to see how much collagen is in these things. And I'm gonna get out the oxtails. All right, so I've got my meat out. I was gonna pour it in here and put that in the fridge, but I'm gonna let this cool down some more, then put the whole Instant Pot liner into the fridge and just let it cool there overnight. There will be some fat, and the rest will turn into beef jello. And this is our meat broth, so it can be used as is. You can skim off the fat if you want, or you can leave the fat. Doesn't really matter. It depends on how you like to cook your soup or your meat broth, future stew recipes with or without the fat. But right now it's too hot to handle. So what I'm going to do with the meat is this is going to make probably at least 3 or 4 meals. Mostly, like, I will probably air fry the oxtails as a meal, and they're completely cooked, so it only takes a few minutes. So for the oxtails, I would air fry them at, say, 400 or 425 degrees for 5 minutes. They'll be crispy on the outside and completely cooked and delicious. Then I will save the bones for bone broth. So, you know, these oxtails have done double duty. They've made meat broth here, and they will also make a batch of bone broth when I'm ready to make the bone broth. I'll just freeze the bones after I've eaten the oxtails. So the oxtails would be one meal, and there's a lot of beef cheeks in there that I can cut up to put in soup or stew. In fact, I think I'm probably going to have some beef cheek soup for dinner. It's very cold outside today, so it's a perfect day. I'll just use some of this and some of that, and you know, make a pot of soup. And you know, being Lion Diet, I'm not adding anything else, not even any herbs from the garden or anything. You know, you certainly can do that. You can do whatever you like. But for me, I'm quite satisfied with just the beef cheeks, the broth, maybe some extra salt. I wanted to share with you the book where I learned all this stuff about making meat broth and how beneficial it is for the gut. It is Dr. Natasha McBride. She is the person who, I believe she invented the GAPS diet, and that is the cornerstone of her program, is healing the gut and sealing it using the meat broth as your first step, healing allergies and autoimmune diseases, that sort of thing. It all starts with meat broth. I highly recommend giving that a read. As well, I will link an interview with her that she did a few years ago with Kelly Hogan, who's not a doctor, but she is a fellow carnivore and a friend. And so I'll link that interview below. It was my first introduction to Dr. Natasha McBride, and I was very impressed with her. And it would be very cool to meet her someday as well. I don't know if that will happen, but she knows a lot about the GAPS diet, and that is, you know, something that she practices. So I'll link that book below too if you're interested. That is it for this episode. Completely easy meat broth to make and a staple on Lion Diet, carnivore, keto, or anyone who's trying to heal anything. Start with the broth. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next video.
Well, which way? Hang on, I gotta stop laughing. Next to me. Never mind. This is the part where I say who I am, right? How do I want to say that? Now I need my Instant Pot. Is it really action now? I lost an oxtail. My name is Anita, and